You don't have to
It's
shout,
Tuesday
Saad.
evening.
You don't have to shout. We can hear you.
Okay.
Relax. Calm down. We can
Okay.
hear you.
Okay.
They can hear you.
All right.
You don't have to shout.
Okay.
Take
Good.
your time.
Okay. Good evening, listeners. This is Bless Radio. Now 6:35 p.m. It's Tuesday evening. This is the spiritual discussion program. Unfortunately, a bit late today. I'm sorry for that. We had a few issues, but we are live now. This is Saad. I'm in Bromley in southeast London, and it's now overcast. It's been breezy, and yeah, and cool, I will say. Just checking, Gregory, are you there? Hello, Gregory, are you there? Gregory, you're on mute. Can you unmute?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes, good evening, Gregory. Please tell us where you are and how's the weather where you are?
Well, just like in London, one is in Brussels. The weather is the same thing as in London.
Same as in London. Okay. Welcome to the show. Again, apologies, listeners. We started half an hour late, just having technical issues. We are live now. So welcome to the show. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail method by Abdushin. And we have a topic every week, a new topic every week. The topic tonight is harvest time. Harvest time. It's now autumn. We definitely had a change in the weather. I think you noticed it over the last few weeks. It's cooler now, breezy as well. So we've entered autumn, and yes, summer is over. So the topic for tonight is harvest time. Now, tonight, because of the way we are broadcasting, I think if you just send me only messages, if you would like to join in the program with any questions or discussions, please only send me messages. Do not call in today. So the number to contact us today, it is 079 39 641 958. You can text or use WhatsApp messaging. Please do not call today. So that's our UK number. I'll just repeat it again. It's 079 39 641 958. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. You can text or use WhatsApp messaging. So again, just to remind you, the topic for tonight is harvest time. I'm now going to begin with what is the Grail message? The Grail message, in the light of truth by Abdushin, is a spiritual knowledge of life. It offers an explanation of the world, a picture of creation on the basis of natural laws. Its lectures contain valuable basic elements as a help in life. For through the knowledge mediated, the readers again brought closer to life and led back to God. The Grail message deals with important fundamental questions of life by explaining in a clear and logical way the automatic working of the laws of nature. Okay.
Hello.
Hi, Saad. How you doing?
Okay, shall we go on?
Okay, shall we go on?
You ready yet?
Yeah, okay, we go on Skype.
Go on Skype now.
Okay, Gregory, can you come on Skype, please? Can you come on Skype? Thank you. Dear listeners, welcome to the show. Apologies, we had some technical issues today. I'm going to bring my guest, Gregory online. I'm Saad Bromley. I'm just calling Gregory to join us in the show. Hopefully he can join us now. Hello, Gregory, are you there?
Yes,
Hello.
Hello, Gregory. Welcome back to the shows. Apologies, listeners. We had a bit of issue with our Skype, which is how we normally join the show, but it is now working. So let me just restart. Welcome, listeners. This is the Spiritual Discussion Program on Bless Radio. I'm Saad in London, in Southeast London, Bromley, and Gregory, you're joining us from Brussels as usual. And just to remind you, the weather here is right now it's actually turning to night now. It is overcast and it's breezy and cool. And I know Brussels is similar to London. So just want to remind you listeners now the topic we're discussing tonight is harvest time. So you're welcome to join us with any questions. Oh, hopefully you can hear me. The topic we are discussing tonight is harvest time. And you can join in the discussion with any questions or comments. The number to contact us, our UK number, it is 07939641958. You can call, text, and use WhatsApp. We are back to normal now. And if you're outside of UK, it is 00447939641958. As I say, the aim of the show is to introduce you to the Grail message in the light of truth by Abdushin. So I'm going to start with, what is the Grail message? The Grail message in the light of truth by Abdushin is a spiritual knowledge of life. It offers an explanation of the world, a picture of creation on the basis of natural laws. Its lectures contain valuable basic elements as a help in life, for through the knowledge mediated, the reader is again brought closer to life and led back to God. The Grail message deals with important fundamental questions of life by explaining in a clear and logical way the automatic working of the laws of nature, the whole weaving of creation, allowing every process to be recognized and thereby the purpose of our whole life. It is directed at the individual and speaks to the innate experiences of the human being, their strengths and weaknesses. Thus, every reader has the opportunity to discover through the intuitive perception if what is stated is the truth. Combining with matter-of-fact reasoning, a complete world picture arises, where there is no separation between the visible world and the great world beyond the five senses, nor any separation between scientific and religious striving for knowledge. I'd like to give you a couple of quotes from the author of the Grail message, Abdushin. The hearer and reader of my lectures should always work within himself, keenly probing and building bridges from one lecture to the other, as well as out into the great and small world happenings. Only then will he be able to understand the Grail message and find that it gradually shapes itself into one complete whole, without leaving any gaps. Again and again in all the happenings, the reader will come back to the basic features. He can explain everything without having to change even one single sentence. The word of the Grail message lives, so that it permits only those people who really carry the honest desire in their souls to find abundantly. All else is automatically rejected by it. For the arrogant and those who seek superficially, the message will remain the book with 7 seals. And I'd like to give you one more quote from the author. I wish to fill the gaps which have so far always remained unanswered in the souls of men, and which never leave any serious thinker in peace if he earnestly seeks for the truth. So, dear listeners, just to remind you, the topic we're discussing tonight is harvest time. It's just connection with, the change in the season from summer to autumn. And as we know, the farmers are busy collecting the harvest. So it's an appropriate time, and also people are celebrating harvest in the churches and various different religions. So it's appropriate to talk about it now. And I'd like to invite you listeners to join in the discussion with any questions or comments. The number to contact us on our UK number, it is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text or use WhatsApp. Gregory, as I mentioned, it's the time to celebrate harvest. People are doing that, and in America and in Canada they call it Thanksgiving. I know they do it sometime later, maybe thinking of late October and November. So, Gregory, I wanted to ask, how should we celebrate? You know, some people give prayers, some people sing, some people dance. You know, others, let's say, it like Christmas, have a party or something. So, how should we celebrate this harvest time?
Well, thanks for this particular question. Harvest time is the time of reaping of the products of the crops that many a person have planted in their farms. So harvest basically, in the expression of it, should be an expression of thanksgiving for having been permitted to be able to reap so many crops which have been sown in the past.
So Thanksgiving, I think, is your what you pointed out there. In this Thanksgiving, as I said, some people give prayers, some people give are singing and dancing. Is that a good expression of giving thanks, or should it be another way?
There are different people here on earth. Each personality is free to express himself or herself in accordance with his or her maturity. But the key thing here is that there is gratitude, there is thankfulness. Whether people go to either a place of worship to express themselves, or they go into nature and express themselves, or they go to do some dancing, it must be borne in mind that they are expressing joy for what they have received, which joy should directly go to, or which thanks should go to him who made it possible that they are able to reap the crops that they themselves had sown.
And you know, last week's topic was titled honor, and you know, we mentioned, for example, last time honoring the NHS for the, you know, the work they've done in the COVID-19, although the NHS is always working. So I was wondering here, with the talking about Thanksgiving and gratitude that we express for the harvest, is that to the Almighty alone, or is it also to the farmers and also to nature? Should it be gratitude to all such, or should it be exclusively to the Almighty?
To all that made it possible that these crops which have been planted have come to fruition. But in the final analysis, that deep gratitude should go to him who made it possible for the human spirit to exist at all.
Thank you for that. Now, I'm going to say a little bit. I was going to go to this a bit later, but I might do that now. So you mentioned, Gregory, about sowing and reaping, and obviously harvest is the product of the reaping, and so now, you know, sometimes you have a good harvest and sometimes it's not so good, and I would say it is not necessarily what has been planted that is the reason why the harvest doesn't work, doesn't become plentiful, or let's say fruit so fruitful. It's just like a season. Sometimes rains, sometimes it doesn't rain. When I say not throughout, not enough rain, let's say, for for the fruits to be so glorious, if I can say that way. So when that happens, Gregory, is there some sign in that, or meaning behind that the harvest wasn't so great this year compared to some other years? Is there some sign that we did not, let's say, work with nature properly, or is there some deeper meaning behind that, Gregory, that why the harvest wasn't so fruitful?
Wherever a crop is planted in the particular soil, the planter or the sower must ensure through vigilance and alertness it provides the necessary resources to ensure these things, these seeds grow and then come to fruition. Whether there be shortage of rain, in some areas there is no rain. In the desert areas there is no rain, yet they are able to sow their crops and they are able to harvest. So it is with man, whatever he is able to do.
So, but I just want to check, are you implying that always the harvest will always be fruitful if we provide all the, in quotes, the raw materials, or is it just variable? Because every year is, or every season can be different. In sometimes there's rain, and sometimes they, constant rain, let's say, like, and then another year it will be much less rain, and so, and I would say that is not in our control. That is nature. So there's some sort of variability from nature.
Is man not a product of nature?
Just to repeat, did you say is man not a product of nature?
Man on earth, you see, in flesh and blood, the tool it uses here, which is the physical body, is that not a product of nature?
Yes, I will say it is. Man is a product of nature, yes.
And also it influences nature.
Yes.
Therefore, it's only right that if man, who is the sower, ensures the necessary resources that the seed needs are made available one way or the other, then there should be no problem.
Okay, that's. I'm just trying to think of what I see, and I just know, even in the, let's say, the well-off countries, you can still have a period when, even though they have all the resources, sometimes the weather is different, and so the crops may not always be, let's say, always performing at the highest level. So, but I will leave it at that. I know that obviously we have a big factor in everything that because we are sowing, we are the ones who are sowing and looking after it. So yes, I would say there is quite a big factor where where we are part of the process, you can say. So yes, I will leave it for that. And okay, now. I would like to also, there's something else, Gregory, another variability I'm thinking of, which is, you could say, man is part of it. We are hearing in the news a lot about forest fires and other climate change issues that are happening quite frequently now, and at a much larger scale, the fires that we see and frequent than before. So I want to ask, is that also some sort of harvest of man doing, or is it a natural change? Because I'm going on like a quite a, you could say, global or bigger shift than, let's say, over time. So, for example, millions of years ago there were dinosaurs, and then at one point they died out, and other animals sort of came over and took over. And so I'm just wondering, Gregory, another aspect of harvest, although it's quite a, as I say, more of a bigger scale. When we see the weather changes in the world, is that a man's doing, or is that a nature's doing?
It is both. Man has an influence on the processes in nature, and there are other influences which swing unconditionally in the will of the Almighty, or which these influences are natural in the sense that they follow the laws of nature. But also man has an interference in nature, not only in his thoughts, but also in his deeds, which results on the long run, the effect of such interference may bring some adverse effects as a final analysis.
Yes, now man has an effect. You said that, and you've reminded me, of course, with science. Let's say man is making changes to the plant's, let's say, DNA. You see that, especially the example I remember is roses. You can get new variety of roses when they do the breeding or fertilizing, and similarly with the crops. Like, let's say, corn. I don't have any specific example in my mind right now, but definitely science is involved in, you could say, in the forgotten the exact word I want to use here, but in the the.
Sorry, it seems we are not on air.
I can hear you. I can hear you very well. Okay. Can we just double check the broadcasting?
Everything is
Okay.
okay, man. Everything's okay.
Okay, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. All right. Okay, we are fine. So, yeah, Greg, I was talking about science, being used to, let's say, make farming more efficient with the, let's say, growing a number of, let's say, corn in a particular, certain amount of corn in, let's say, 1 hectare, just as an example, and they improve that with DNA changes and so on. As you say, you've already said that man does. I don't want to use the word interfere, but modify things that nature has been doing. So when man does those changes, and of course it affects the harvest, is that, how can you say, would that be natural? It won't be natural, it'll be artificial, but is that correct? Should we be playing with nature?
There is no playing with nature. What has happened is a form of optimization of the conditions and the resources which are available, even in the so-called DNA. Many still don't understand what it's all about. There are basically no changes to the essence of these crops as such, only a slight modification in its effects. For if there are changes, that means if they violate the laws of nature, then those crops will not come out in the way they should come out. What you will have is, most of the time, an acceleration of events, and also crops which are more resilient. It doesn't mean that doing such things they have violated the laws of nature. Basically, many have not done themselves deep enough to understand these intrinsic laws which affect everything.
Thank you for that, Gregory. Dear listeners, I want to remind you, you're listening to Bless Radio. It's the Tuesday evening spiritual discussion program from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Apologies for our late start today, but we are live now. The topic, the aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail message by Abdushin. And if you're interested in finding out more information on the Grail message or want to get a copy of the Grail message, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that. www.grail, Grail, message, message.com. And the topic we're discussing tonight is harvest time. Harvest time. You're welcome to join us with any questions or comments. The number to contact us on our UK number, it is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. Gregory, I want to, we're talking about harvest time. I want to now talk about the harvest time in a spiritual sense. Because, we said harvest is it's the result of, sowing and then reaping. So, and we talked about the laws of nature. We always refer to the laws of nature. And we can see that in nature, in the physical world, with the plants and vegetation and so on. But how can we sort of observe them? Because Jesus did say, "What you sow, you shall reap." And of course, he wasn't meaning only the plants; he meant us. So, my question, Gregory, is with regard to sowing and reaping. With us spiritually, let's say we do an action, and I don't mean planting, as I say, with thoughts. Let's just say with thoughts, that is an action as well, or even speaking. But we don't see the consequence or the result of that thought, or words visibly. So how do we know that there is such a law of sowing and reaping, acting in this situation of speaking and thoughts?
Basically, there are 5 senses. These 5 senses which we have will be called adapters. What the human being uses here on earth, the human being in flesh and blood uses as tools for picking up impressions. The impressions of seeing, of hearing, of touching, of smelling. So when you consider this, these are only adapters. And then you say, these transmit information to the brain. Well, we know that information is transmitted to the brain, but at the same time in which thoughts are generated. Only recently, thoughts we have instruments to a very limited extent which can pick up the thoughts. So we, using the 5 senses which nature presents to us, one is able now to understand that finally these impressions, these external impressions, are transferred to the brain in which thoughts are generated. But one has to go beyond that, for they don't just remain in the brain. They go via the back brain and they go to the spirit. to understand what is happening. That's why we have these discussions, which is based on the laws of creation, or based in the light of truth, the Grail message. So knowing that, we must also understand, just as we have the soil in which seeds are sown, there is also, or there exists an environment, which environment the spirit exists, and many other environments in between. So the environment which one is referring to with regards to spiritual things are basically the ethereal environment. It is in that environment that man sows through his activities. He is in the activity of talking, or of singing, or so many other things. These are transmitted from the frontal brain to a large extent the back brain, if the intellect permits it to go to the back brain, and then it registers. When it then registers, you were in accordance with the laws of attraction of homogeneity. Other thoughts, other activities are drawn to it because they resonate with it. And subsequently, there is a build-up. And when it arrives at a particular extent, the density is so much that it now precipitates back to the earth. So, from the spiritual standpoint, that is only a brief introduction of what happens beyond the earthly perceptions.
Thank you for that, Gregory. You have illustrated that there are basically different materials or species or medium that we are working in, and obviously something that's physical, you can see it physically. Something that's non-physical, you need to use the same material as that to be able to see that. So, and with your example of the brain, let's say vibrations that we can pick up with scientific instruments, but then there's other things which the scientific instruments doesn't pick up. So obviously you can't see those things physically. However, what you've shown is the same pattern that you see. The natural laws operate in the physical and also in the non-physical. So when we look at it that way, then it all makes sense. And there's something in the news currently, Gregory, that I'm I think the whole world is aware of, which is I'm trying to give an example of the law of sowing and reaping here. As you know, in the news we've heard that President Donald Trump has got COVID-19, and many people immediately was asked, oh, why is this happening? And then they just immediately said karma. This is in the general public. Even who are not supporters or supporters, they're all, let's say they were in agreement that, oh yes, it was even a surprise that he hadn't got this COVID-19 much earlier, because of the way things have been happening there. So you could say that's like maybe an obvious example of karma. But Gregory, what I also want to look at there is that I'm not saying I'm only using it as an example because it's something in the news, but it can be anything that happens to anyone, where let's say repeatedly we do an action, and which is, let's say, dangerous, and yet we don't. Let's say it doesn't always result in an accident or in a, let me say the example I'm thinking of. Let's say you cross the road every day, and there's obviously traffic, and then, but sometimes you're quite careless. You run across without looking, or something like. Maybe people do something like that, a careless thing. Let's say regularly. Let's say 9 out of 10 times nothing actually happens to you. But once in the 10th time, or even let's say 100 times you do it, and 99 out of 100, nothing happens to you. You somehow escape the detriment, let's say the dangerous consequences of it, But once in a hundred time, it does happen. The consequences, you know, let's say, it's something harmful happens. So my question on that is, is that, let's say, um, a mercy from the Creator that we don't suffer the consequences of our actions always immediately. It's like we're given opportunities. I just wanted to understand that because people do wonder sometimes in other situations. I won't give an example right now, where it looks like random. One person gets gets, let's say, disease, and another person similar does the same thing, doesn't get that disease, and you start wondering, oh, why is that happening? You're not sure if the laws are consistent or not. So when we look at, can you explain how that can happen, that something can happen 100 times but only once in 100 something happened to you?
From the earthly point, from an intellectual point of view, these seem statistical, and they assume that there is the randomness in the laws of nature through which they themselves came into existence. Like has been stressed in the past, it is because many a personality haven't examined thoroughly enough these laws of nature or the laws of creation. For they should know that when one sows a crop, all different crops mature at different times. So you may carry out an activity and you do not get results immediately because the time for the maturity hasn't arrived. At the same time, you will carry out certain activities because of the ethereal environment around you. You find that an opportunity is presented through which the returns of past activities are able to manifest. These are the calculations which many are unable to understand. But all this follow very simply from the laws of creation, from the laws of, like you said, sowing and reaping, which one will call reciprocal action. Many a reciprocal action may just may manifest almost simultaneously. There are some other activities, like one goes to the farm and plants an Iroko tree. That tree does not grow to maturity in an instant. It takes its time to grow. And maybe after some years, could be 10, 20, 30, or 40 years, you now have a massive tree. Whereas if one were to plant some vegetable in the gardens, or sometimes tomato, it takes a very short time. In a similar fashion, some of our activities, they manifest much later. But above all, it is when, through either carelessness, we do not build a buffer around ourselves, such that when these reciprocal actions or reciprocal activities come, they then find that we have an environment which is conducive for them, and therefore they strike or they manifest in a way which we didn't expect. Whereas you now have also, on the other hand, bad or good reciprocal actions may also approach. Again, if we have built an environment around ourselves where they cannot manifest immediately, you find that they will not even have an impact on us. So one thing should be very clear in creation or in life. There is always motion, incessant motion. And each moment we're either improving ourselves, improving on our inner selves, purifying ourselves, or digging ourselves into a hole. The narrower we make ourselves to be due to bad impressions, then the heavier we become. And the heavier we become, then it's possible that the returning reciprocal actions, if they're also heavy, will hit us in such an extent that we become sorrowful. So one should be very open or sensitive to the environment, the physical and the non-physical environment. A more precise explanation can be found in the work In the Light of Truth. For what one has just discussed is only a tip of the iceberg.
Thank you so much, Gregory. I definitely was able to follow you about this law of sowing and reaping, or law of reciprocal action, as a, you could say, completely, immutable law, where you do an action and there will be a reaction without any doubt. It's just automatic that will happen. And it made me think, so, there's no escape with that. It's, you sow what you sow, you shall reap. It will happen. Now, I was wondering, Jesus also mentioned the forgiveness, and and we always think of him, bringing love, which comes with forgiveness. So I want to understand, how does forgiveness work? If every time you do an action, there's always going to be a reaction, and the reaction is like the same, like as the I'm not saying this very well. So the reaction is of the same nature as your original action. So if, let's say, if you harm someone, you can expect a harmful reaction. And obviously, if you do good, you expect you'll get a good reaction. So I want to understand, how does the forgiveness work? Because forgiveness, it doesn't seem possible to have forgiveness, really, because you do an action and the reaction is going to happen. It's like you can do nothing about that reaction. It's going to happen. Karma, as we call it, karma. There doesn't seem to be any way out of that. So where does forgiveness come in? Can we intervene when we say, "Oh, I forgive you"? Does that overrule the laws? How does forgiveness work?
Well, you didn't say forgiveness by this or by that. You just said forgiveness or forgive you. It is not merely by speech. It depends on, if you take two people, maybe it's best to start from there. You take two people, one has done a bad thing to another, and the person who suffered has the right to say, "Okay, I forgive you." But it is not mere saying it that counts. But if in doing that it comes from the depths of their spirit, then it has an effect in such a way that, in the first case, it severs those reciprocal actions which would have tied him and the person who initiated such an offense. However, this reciprocal action must surely come What then happens if the person who is the offender, through his activities, is able to work his environment or work on his immediate environment through very good deeds? It becomes such that his environment becomes lighter and lighter. That is more of penance. And subsequently, what then happens? When the reciprocal activities come, they now come, they are dark threads. But these dark threads now meet an environment which is much lighter. Just as you have here on Earth, the Earth's atmosphere contains air, and any trajectory, anything which is coming from the outside in trying to go through the atmosphere is burnt out. Therefore, you have in the scenario which we are discussing, when the returns come to the person who initiated such a terrible act, if that particular personality has so changed inwardly, those returns may come but cannot take a firm effect on that personality because he or she has so improved in his environment through penance, through showing good deeds and regretting what he or she had done. It is different with people who do not have remorse, who are not prone to or who do not wish to do good deeds or with firm good volition.
Thank you for that explanation, Gregory. Now I can see how the process works, because you can see the bigger picture here, where it's not the forgiveness is not automatically unconditional. The person, the offender, like you said, has to. There must be a shift in the offender's attitude and the way they're acting for the forgiveness to actually act. Otherwise, the karma or reciprocal action would act in the way it was going to act originally. So they must change. The person who's offended has to change, and so the person who was offended, who gave the forgiveness, there must be justice acting there. So I can see what you have said, the picture you've given there. I can now see that these things there is a context in how the forgiveness is working. It's not just like you say, I forgive you, and then the person is forgiven. The other person who offended is forgiven. They have to change their ways, So yes, now that makes sense. So thank you for that. Now, I think I would like to go back to the harvest of nature as we started with in the show, and I would like to, let me just see if somebody's okay. I've got a question from a listener. Let me go to that immediately, actually. It's about COVID-19. It's saying, taking COVID-19 into consideration, to what extent is man allowed to manipulate nature? Let me repeat that question, Gregory. Taking COVID-19 into consideration, to what extent is man allowed to manipulate nature?
The word manipulation may not be a good expression for it. When it is said one is manipulating nature, one must first look at the scenario very carefully. This so-called COVID-19 is a virus. This virus has now got its own free will. saying it is going to attack man. If man exposes himself or herself to a scenario, then because his systems are different, then you have the impact of this foreign system will not be beneficial. Therefore, one cannot accuse a virus. Once man makes the environment conducive for a particular virus to exist, then that virus will have an effect on him or her. What has been discussed most of the time is to act as if this particular virus has come in to attack man specifically. What is key here is to ensure true vigilance. One does not make himself or herself or whole nations susceptible to these foreign substances, which can exist in a different environment without having an impact on man. Of course, there are times that you have that many keep tinkering with the molecules or with the viruses with the purpose of using it as a weapon to harm others. And then there are leaks. And when you have those leaks, it causes all sorts of terrible or harmful impacts on mankind. But at the same time, you have that some of these viruses can exist very well in animals because their environment or within them, they can harbor it without any problem. Whereas we are of a different species, yet we bring these things into our own inner environment. So tinkering, that means, in quotes, the so-called genetic tinkering, in which you have different combinations to harm some other person, again already tells you that the volition is wrong. That definitely cannot be a good volition.
Thank you for that, Gregory. Again, you've pointed out how much we have to see the big picture because, as you say, with COVID-19, humans react or respond to it differently than to animals. It doesn't affect animals, but it affects us human beings. So it's like you have to know of the context, and you say tinkering with nature, how it will respond to humans and how it will respond to something else. So, yeah, thank you for bringing that out. Dear listeners, I want to remind you, you're listening to Bless Radio. It's the Tuesday evening spiritual discussion program. The aim of the show is to introduce you to this knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail message by Abdrusheen. And if you're interested in getting a copy of the Grail message or want to get some more information, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that. www.grail, Grail, message, MESSAGE.com. And the topic we're discussing tonight is harvest time. You're welcome to join us with any question or comments. The number to contact us, our UK number, is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 00447939641958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. Okay, I want to go back to nature when we're talking about harvest here. So just to go there. Yes, as I said, well, at least in the northern hemisphere, harvest happens in September, October time, and that's when nature brings the fruit, you can say, of what we have sown, and that's in the northern hemisphere, and obviously southern hemisphere, it's at another time. Let's say 6 months from now. Now, with the modern world, Gregory, we have so much technology and ease of transport, and we can, let's say, have fruits and vegetables from all over the world. Let's say at least in the well-off countries. I think it's actually all over the world. I think we can import everywhere now easily and transport things, fruit and veg easily. So, and Greg, what I'm trying to ask you, Gregory, is so we have a choice of, fruit and vegetables from any part of the world, in any country, pretty much. So, is that, let's say, healthy for us or sustainable even? Because the time we live today, there's a massive world population, and with all this, let's say, choice, so much is available, but maybe we are depriving by taking things from other areas, the fruit that is born, normally grows in other areas. So my question is, Gregory, how should we be living with nature? We have all this freedom and choice of fruit and vegetable everywhere. Should we have local produce that we should eat from our areas, or should we just because of the availability of technology, should we just also import it from elsewhere and enjoy that as well?
Technology basically enhances what is available, right? It speeds things up. So it's technology that makes it possible to fly in an airplane. It's technology that makes it possible to drive in a car or to ride in a train. Should we say because we do not wish to go that fast, we want to return to that age where we were going on foot or riding horses or riding camels? One has to consider these things. So the advent of technology is to speed things up. Whereas in the past, it would have taken such a long time from the so-called places of supply, which may refer to now as the supply chain, to that area or the destination where the crops or the goods are consumed. The earth as such is so constituted that you have balances, checks and balances. And that is why if one examines the law of reciprocal action, of reciprocity, it also ensures there should be balance. Whenever there is no balance, then we have an exaggeration of events, which then precipitates into harmful consequences. Whatever is available that can be helpful in any area of the earth, that can be harmful to the inhabitants of the earth, that should be made use of. After all, here on earth, the individuals are here to mature through interactions with themselves or with one another. Or should they not interact because they live in different regions of the world or different regions here on earth? However, even in these interactions, there must be a balance between the giving and the taking. So the resources that are available on earth is not only for one person, not only for one village or for one city or for one region, but these are resources which are made available to be shared amongst the different populace of the earth. Or should one say, because in some countries they do not make cars, therefore they will not make use of cars, they will have to develop their own. You have in another country which cannot produce oil. Will they then say, oh, they won't produce oil? Then, there are other countries who don't produce oil, will not make use of the oil because there's no oil in their land. The same thing goes with music. Many a time you find music is produced by someone. These are works of art. Should you say, because that piece of music, which is so beautifully constructed, was not produced within your family, therefore you will not listen to it? The same thing goes with the air we breathe in. The air we breathe in, the air is common, available to everyone. Are you now going to say, because you do not want to share the air with other people, you now put a bubble around yourself, such that you only breathe in your own air? These are the questions many a person must ask themselves. The best they can do is to ensure that whenever or wherever they take, they should put something back in compensation, in appreciation for what has been made available through the will or through the laws of creation, through which they themselves came into existence.
Thank you for that, Gregory. Again, you gave a, let's say, more comprehensive picture, which maybe people may not have thought of it in that way. Just continuing from what that question, I would like to talk about, let's say, Gregory, as we know, what you sow, you shall reap. That is what harvest is. So if you grow rice, you only get rice. If you grow apple, you get apple. And that can never change. So in regards with that, and you talked about balance there also. So, it's like going back to that one about if you plant apple, you get apple fruit, obviously. So there's what I'm trying to point to, Gregory. There's a season when the harvest comes in. It doesn't go out of season, if you try to do that, plant something, of course you can do in the greenhouse such things, and you can do that. So, and I also see your point about something being available in one country but not being available in another country. Does that mean the other country that doesn't have it should be deprived of that thing? So I can see, yes, there shouldn't be such a deprivation, but maybe because we also, I know I'm a little bit winding around, but I just want to build this big picture. The other thing is, the nature can't be, we said we can't manipulate nature. We can modify, let's say, certain things that we use nature, work with nature, you could say. And so my question now from that is, there's a season when the harvest happens. So should we just wait for that time for the harvest to happen to eat that fruit and vegetable when it appears, or should we just because of the facility of being able to import something, should we do that? And I'm talking, let's say, in the ideal circumstances, and maybe that is the situation, Gregory. We are not living in the ideal times nowadays. It's just that because it's just, let's say, certain things that we can do and we do it. So what would be the, let's say, ideal way? Should every country and place be able to grow its own things and look after itself, sustain itself, or are we meant to be, let's say, like an industrial revolution, be able to have everything?
The possibility always exists that when one is born in a particular environment, those things which are necessary for the personality to thrive, to grow, are presented or are made available to the human spirit such that it will mature. At the same time, one should know that there are many times in which the seasons do not go or do not come as they used to. What would then happen when there are delays in the seasons, or when there is drought in a particular place? Should the personality now say, oh, these crops are supposed to have come within this particular time. Now they haven't. And therefore, I will not take out of those that have come from a different region. That is the first question. Another way of saying these things is that you have the scenario where one is unwell, and all this while, when that particular person has been well, is able to produce his own antibodies, is able to produce his own blood groups, no worries, everything went on well. Now there are slight changes in which that particular person needs to augment the little blood that he has, maybe because of an operation, and now he or she needs some blood to be able to go through this particular period, but not permanently. Should that person then refuse because he himself did not produce that particular blood? Should that person then refuse to make use of it? What one should know is that, yes, the possibility is there that we, within a given region, can have all that we need. But that does not suffice. For the farmer that goes to the farm does not only consume what he himself has produced, but also exchange and takes from others what they have produced. It didn't come from his farm. That farm could be within 1 mile, could be within 10 miles, could be within 50 or 100 miles, could be in a different place. All these nutrients that come from a different neighborhoods are to support for some time. But should that person need to go to a different environment, it's only fair that he or she takes from the nutrients it is used to because the body was built on those nutrients and on those regulations of that particular region. One should always consider things very much in an intuitive manner before one rejects or accepts.
Thank you for that answer again, Gregory. I want to again go back to the spiritual pictures of the law of sowing and reaping now, with regards to human beings, and I'm thinking of we talked about karma, and then we also hear about, let's say, the final judgment, or the last or judgment day, let's say, and that is another, you could say, a manifestation of harvest, and of sowing and reaping. So I want to understand, Gregory, how does that work? This law of the last judgment, or the judgment day. Is that one day that will happen? That all our actions, we die and we pass over, and then somehow we rise up again, and we are now judged by all the actions we have done. How does that work? This judgment day, or the last judgment, as people call it.
First, one must understand the word day. A day is a period. And if one now takes the concept of a period, then you will find that within that period, there will be a process involved. This judgment is not meant for stones, it's not meant for plants, it's not meant for the animals, it is meant for man. For it is man himself that has the free will. And as man has sown, whether it be good deeds that have been sown throughout the beginning of its journey, which journey consists of living the spiritual home as an unconscious spirit gem, in order to experience, mature, and then grow to that peak in such a way that is able now to return back home as a conscious or a self-conscious spirit gem. That journey must be considered. And for the human spirit, which this judgment is meant for, it is such that the deeds, the reciprocity of its activities is now brought back to it, such that it may then experience it in such a way so that it can decide whether all these reciprocal activities have been beneficial or not, beneficial in accordance with the laws through which it also came into existence. So it is the returns within a given period which is peculiar to each personality. So when the word judgment day is used, it only means a return of the activities, the reciprocal activities that have accrued or that have grown, that have matured back to him or her who, in the first instance, have put them or have planted them in creation. If these reciprocal activities are beneficial and is able to mature in recognizing the benefits or not benefits of these returns, then is able to either mature in the process or, in the case of non-recognition, sink in that process. So the judgment day is a natural process in accordance with the law of sowing and reaping, or what one may refer to is the reciprocal action that has accrued, which reciprocal action combined with the attraction of homogeneity. If the reciprocal action is such that it only attracts terrible, homogeneous currents, then the human spirit should enjoy what it has put into creation. If, on the other hand, the reciprocal action attracts those beautiful activities in accordance with the law of attraction of homogeneity, then this will have such an impact on the human spirit that is able to sever itself when the time comes to move higher and higher and higher in accordance with the laws of spiritual gravitation, because no knot holds it down, and therefore is able to recognize one thing upon the other, which will now help him to rise until, in the final analysis, he gets back as a self-conscious human spirit.
Thank you for that, Gregory. I just want to explore a bit further about it. You said that this judgment is the natural process, and and we again referring to the law of sowing and reaping. So it's not. And before I mentioned the word judgment day and the last judgment, as if it's something. Oh, this is the date. This is the deadline. After this date, it doesn't matter what you say or do, or nothing can happen. So it's like all your actions you've done up to this point are now, in quotes, there's a judgment on that. But you are saying it's a natural process. So, and for each individual, it's a different, let's say, time of in this process. So, which makes sense because everybody is doing different actions, and there's sort of the consequence of the actions happens, can't be all on the same time. So, just to understand the process, when you say it's natural, does it mean that I'm trying to understand so let's just to understand, because some people think, oh, you should die before you are judged. So is the judgment happening after our death or while we are alive? Is it happening on the earth? Is it happening in the beyond? And yeah, how does it work like that there?
The reciprocal actions accruing from man's activities over time is such that some of these maturity, or some of the maturity of this, what man had sown, could be such that those ones will be redeemed or will be experienced here on earth. There are others which have to be experienced in the beyond. So it is not tied to, the person has to come here for one day and to experience everything. After all, there is no barrier between, here and the beyond. It's one continuum. What then happens is that the returns, which definitely will come, could meet one here, could also meet one in the beyond. But these returns have to happen within the world of matter because of its density. So where does the judgment take place? In both. It cannot be only here on earth. For when man was sowing, these threads, some of it could mature here on earth. Some of the threads, depending on the consistency, depending on the species, could mature not here on earth, but in the immediate environment. One should not just consider that when a human spirit passes on, it is severed and goes straight to heaven. There are many intermediate areas which the human spirit has to go through. The thoughts which we harbor, which may belong to the astral realm, the thoughts which we harbor, which may also be in the ethereal. So there are all these intermediates. The human spirit will have to experience the returns from what it initiated in these different regions. Only then would one say the judgment is perfect. For what a personality has sown on earth, he or she needs to come to reap it on earth. If it has been in the astral, he needs to go there to experience it. If it's in the ethereal realm, or even deeper than that, he needs to go there to experience it.
Thank you, Gregory. We've come to the end of our show, dear listeners. We covered a lot of different aspects of harvest tonight, and I hope it was enlightening for you and you enjoyed that. Gregory, is there anything you'd like to say goodbye to the listeners?
We wish everyone well and hope they themselves will make the effort to look into this work in the light of truth, the Grail message, for it will help them in many scenarios.
Thank you for that. Yes, dear listeners, as Gregory has said there, if you can, if you're able to pick up the message and explore it for yourself, investigate it for yourself, then many of the things that we talk about, we can only touch upon them in the show. You'll get a deeper grasp of it and understanding of it. So we do encourage you and request that you do pick up the Grail message and see what answers it gives about you could say, I'll put the mysteries in quotes of life. So thank you again for listening to the show tonight. As usual, we'll be back next week with a new topic. Just to remind you, if you want to pick up the Grail message or want some more information, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that: www.grail, Grail, message, MESSAGE.com. I'm Saad, and I wish everybody a great week. Enjoy the harvest that we are having, especially of those of us in the northern hemisphere. We're experiencing that, and the changes in the weather. Yes, see the fruits of nature and our fruits, out there, and I urge you, as always, to have a deeper understanding of this process of harvest and life, and pick up the Grail message. All the best, everybody. Take care. God bless. Have a great week. Bye.